Shalom, everyone. So happy to be here at the Light of Infinite Festival. And I got the most apropos title, I suppose, that it's Light of Infinite Festival, because mine is the illusion of time. And, you know, the light of the infinite, no time in that light. And so you might be thinking, like, you just got to see my screensaver for this. So, no time is, and let's talk about light and the speed of light. Did you know that at the speed of light, things move slower at the speed of light? Meaning, that's funny, the speed of light sounds very fast, so things shouldn't move slower, but time moves slower. It's called the theory of relativity, and the faster you go, the slower things get. For example, if we were all sitting here right on this earth and a little group of us together hanging out, and then one of us decides to take a rocket off of Earth, and so for all the tick-tocks on Earth, tick-tock, tick-tock, when he's flying at that speed, whatever speed it is, now all of a sudden it's tick-tock, tick-tock. It goes faster. Tick-tock. And once you start getting faster, it gets slower and slower. So if he came back a year later, we would all be, 365 days older, while that person would be younger, depending how fast he went. He might be a half year younger. He might be a couple weeks younger if he didn't go that fast. But if you went the speed of light, he is going to be the same age as when he left, basically, regarding Earth years. So he may have been gone on Earth years for 365 days, but by the time he got back to the Earth, he's already like, we're a year older, and he's just like the same age, as when he left. So the light of the infinite means no time at all. And it gets even more interesting, actually. When you start going into the discussion of time, Kabbalah teaches us that God creates the world from absolute nothingness. This world is something from nothing. And so if we're coming into existence from absolute nothingness into somethingness at all times, perpetually coming from something from nothing at all times, that means that there's no such thing as cause and effect. There's no such thing as time, really. It just means that God's creating this now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and now. The whole world's coming into existence right now, right here, right now. And that's how the world works, like that it's actually coming in now. So there is no time. So what is time? Well, time is an illusion. Some of our teachers of this generation call it psychological time. That it's a pure psychological fact. It's not an actual fact, because it's relative. For example, the Earth spins every 24 hours vis-a-vis the sun. So there's spinning vis-a-vis the sun, 24 hours it spins around. It looks like the sun is setting, but really the Earth is spinning. And that passage of time is only vis-a-vis the sun. Otherwise, what is time if not moving bodies? So time and motion seem to be related. Well, related because time is ultimately relative. But it is not of its own existence. You notice in Genesis, it never says, let there be time. It doesn't say let there be time. It's just, time is just supposed. Also, we see that regarding the theory of relativity, the 6 days of creation and then Shabbos, those 6 days, the Torah keeps calling it day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. But the sun only actually is created on day 4. So where was all of this taking place exactly if our solar system wasn't yet set up And why are you calling it a day? And what is a day before the perspective of our solar system? Or before the perspective of man, Adam, who was man and woman, on the end of the sixth day. And it's kind of interesting, if time really is coming from the perspective of God until the sixth day, how long is each day? Could each day, according to the Torah, be a couple billion years? And also, Adam seems to have two creations. So there seems to be, let us make man. And then later it talks about God blowing into man a nishmas chaim, a living soul. And which seems to be Adam has two creations. And perhaps the time between his birth and the time between the soul put into him could be, maybe that's the whole time of Homo sapiens before the first souled Homo sapien. I don't know. It's quite likely that all of this Garden of Eden story was taking place in the spiritual realms, which is where reality actually is. I know everyone's always wondering if the spiritual world exists, because the physical world, clearly exists, right? But in fact, the question isn't so much whether the spiritual world exists. The question is, does our world exist? Why? Because you see, this world clearly comes from somewhere. Everything comes from something. So this world's clearly being beamed in. It's a creation. They call it creation. It's being created. And it's therefore getting beamed in from somewhere. So wherever it's getting beamed in from is probably much more real than the image that it's beaming. For example, if you're in a theater, and before the digital theaters, but in old school theaters, so what's more real? What's on this being projected on the screen, which is the image, the created image, or is it more real the cells of film shooting across the projector? And I would figure that projector with its very strong light source and the cells of film are much more real than what's been projected on the screen. Now it happens that our screen is 3D, so because of the three-dimensional nature of the screen, it seems like maybe this is real, the three-dimensional world, but it's being beamed in. They have a famous saying. Maybe I've said this, I don't even know. I think I heard someone say it many years ago, is someone's making something up. Either God's making us up or we're making God up. Now, I would definitely venture that God's making us up. What this really stands on is the illusion, meaning we can't simultaneously exist with an infinite being. Either the infinite being exists and we are the being projected by this infinite being, or we exist and we're projecting that there is an infinite being. But they can't simultaneously exist. The reason why is because the infinite is without limit. It doesn't have a beginning or end. And whereas finite clearly has beginning and end. Well, this world here, this physical world, it has beginning and end. It's like physical stuff, beginning and end. And if we're being created by an infinite being, and we don't allow that infinite being to remain called an infinite being, it has to not end. Well, if it doesn't end, because the second it ends, it's finite. So as long as if it doesn't end, that means that this world is of it. We're a projection of it. And so the second you posit an infinite being, you're already saying that we are a projection. We are the illusion. One of us has to be illusion. Or you can say we're real and we're making up an illusion of God. I go with us being the illusion and God being the reality for various reasons. And one of those reasons is all of the wisest people that ever lived said so. That's pretty good. It's very wise people that we trust when we get in airplanes, very wise people we trust for, getting into our cars and driving 70 miles per hour. So much, much, much wiser people believed at the threat of death that we're being projected into existence. I know some people are saying, "Oh, what do you mean? There's all kinds of wise people." Didn't believe that. Yeah, I don't use the same word "wise" when you're referring to our sages and you're referring to those wise people. Okay, or you want to call them, you could call them wise with a lowercase w, perhaps, not the capital W. And I'll explain why that is. The reason why that is because the wise people that we trust for our information are people who, even to sit on the courts that they sat on, which was called the Sanhedrin, it was on the Temple Mount of, there was a round building right where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is, and that was the Temple Mount, and sorry, the court, the Sanhedrin, was this round building, literally where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is. In that round were 71 judges. You know what it took to be one of those 71 judges? Well, who did you have to be on that? So one of the things you had to do was you had to know all of Torah. Another thing you had to do, you had to know all of like black magic, witchcraft, everything like that. Not because you'd use it, but because you had to judge cases on it and you had to know it inside and out. Another thing you had to know was all languages. You weren't allowed to try a case in a foreign tongue, in translation. So you had to know all languages. So to get on the court, you had to have all 70 languages. And all of them we happen to know, knew languages of birds, trees. They understood the actual fiber of creation and could hear its speech. These people, in the early days of the temple, many of them were prophets as well, and these people were like witnessing the miracles in the Temple Mount all the time. And another thing just that's fun food for thought is, everyone grows up thinking church and state is like separate. Otherwise it's evil. Now, the truth is, I think that we could appreciate why it would have been good for us to separate church and state, at least in North America or Europe or something, but it's not an actual proper way of looking at things. In Judaism, the Temple Mount was the place of the law. That was the law. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah devar Shem Yerushalayim, because from Zion comes the Torah and the Word of God from Jerusalem. And I don't know. I grew up I was an outlaw. Not literally an outlaw, but what I mean by that is I was not into human law at all. Hugely rebellious against human law. If humans created structures, so I had a very high level of expectation for it to follow, and the civil law was not interesting to me. If anything, I felt like it was hampering my liberties. Whereas Torah, which is very libertarian, Torah, which offers the full range of anything you want to do with your personal life besides the prophetic prohibitions, which anyway, who would want to do them? They're just in the way of they're just in the way of our spiritual quest to do the negative commandments. They would just block us spiritually. Time. Sorry, that was a lot of digression. Let's get into time. If time is an illusion, as we said, that means that this is a constant experience of now. So let's call that the future over there. Call that the past over there. So the future is coming in to the present, moving right out the past, in from the future to the present, the past. Yeah, a lot of nows happen. Now, the only thing you can experience, which is another reason we know that time's an illusion, is that you've never experienced time. And, usually things that you can't experience are illusions. They're not real. And no one has ever experienced time. Now, you can conceptualize the future. You had better, because you got to make plans and you got to get ready for things and prepare. You can conceptualize the past, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the past. And you'd better be able to conceptualize the past, or you make the same mistakes over and over again. But you cannot experience them. Just like you can't experience a minute from now, you can't experience a minute ago, you can't experience a second from now or a second. What's the one thing you can experience? And it's now, right here, right now. It's the only thing you can experience, just right here, right now. So why don't we snap our fingers on 4, like that, double snap. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're just gonna ride the now. Get ready. Here we go. Gonna ride the now. That's all there is. 1, 2, 3. Ride the now. Ride it. It's coming in. Just ride it. Ride the now. All there is now. My fist is the now. Let's snap on 4. 1, 2, 3. Ride the now. And what you realize as you get into the now is you realize there's a stillness within, and there is a connection that you might feel in your heart to the world around you, the stuff around you, the people around you, if you got anyone around you. And it is, there's nothing quite like it. And everything kind of takes on this shine of beauty when you're in the now. You gotta, hold on to it. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. And stay in the now. Now. And yeah, so that's an amazing access. I mean, this is like the way in, and you can cut into the now and be in it and experience it and love it. And of course, it doesn't mean you're going to be irresponsible, because you remember the past, you're making plans for the future, but you live in the now. Let's ask a question. Why would you ever go for the past? And why would you ever go for the future? Because so many people are living in this psychological time of the past and the future, the past and the future. Why would anyone do that? What's going on with you? And so the answer is that there's a part of your brain called the default mode network, and it's right between your right and left lobes. And what the default mode network does is it sends the past into the future, like a shovel. Digs the shovel into the past and flings it into the future. And why would it do that? It does it because it's here to protect you. And so what it will do is it will take something of the past, like, for example, a hot pot, which you don't want to touch. And having touched a hot pot, every time I see a pot, I will be flinging the past hot pot that burned my hands into the future to check it before I grab it, make sure it's not too hot. Same thing when you're driving. Every driving experience you've had from the past is shooting into your future so that you can drive at 65 miles per hour down the highway. And it's an obvious question. Who would you prefer drives you to Brooklyn? So would you prefer someone with 18 years driving experience or someone with 36 years driving experience? And the answer is I want the 36 years. Why? Because they're going to be throwing more of their past into the future. So that as they navigate, they're going to be using all the rich past of driving for the future. Now, here's an interesting thing, is that the default mode network, what it does is it shuts down when you're in a situation where you got to concentrate, it shuts down your environment. So if you're driving at 65 miles per hour, the highway around you and everything going on around you, the trees, the deer, the eagles flying over, they are all, you don't actually see them. Your brain is creating what are called predictive models of what you're seeing around you. And that's why when you're a passenger, you can see like 10 deer on the side of the highway, and you say to the driver, you say, "Did you see those deer?" He's like, "What deer?" "I didn't see any deer." And recently I was getting a ride from the, where were we going? Oh, we're going to Brooklyn. Oh, we're going to Brooklyn. And meanwhile, there's big jet. I guess it was coming to LaGuardia. I don't know. It was coming in like, literally looked like it was going to take out the car. A full-on 747 heading right for the car. And I'm having a conversation with the guy next to me who was driving. And he wanted to change lanes and to turn one lane over on the left. And he actually turns around and looks over his shoulder right as the plane was like full, like it almost touched the roof of the car. So I said to him, "Do you see that plane?" He was like, "What plane?" Because we don't see anything. We actually don't see anything. We don't hear anything. When's the last time you heard the hired guitarist who's probably being paid like $750 to play guitar at a wedding? When's the last time you heard any of his solos? And did you taste the food? And now you're like, "What are you talking about? You took us from the highway to a wedding?" And the answer is yes, because you see, you've been walking into weddings at 65 miles per hour. Because just like a hot pot's in the past and you want to keep it out of your fingers in the future, and just like all the driving incidents that happened in the past, you want to keep them up in the future to protect you while you drive, so too is every rejection you've ever had, failure you've ever had, being controlled by others that you've ever had. All the you see, the future is full of unknown. The future is just one big unknown. It's one giant question mark. And so what happens is the default mode network is doing its best at all times to take the past, fling it into the future, which means all past boo-boos, which include rejection, failures, you name it. It's taking all those past boo-boos and flinging them into the future so that you can somehow navigate into the future. But, okay, that might be great. What would be the problem? Well, the problem is that everything you're seeing and everything you're hearing and everything around you is all predictive models. You're not actually there. You're not actually at the wedding you're at. You're not actually in the meeting you're at. You're not around. You're not tasting the apple that you're eating. You're not seeing the sunsets. You're everything, because when you turn everything into predictive models, that means, and you're the 10% of your brain that's focused on what you're dealing with is anyway conceptualizing everything, because it's a lot easier to navigate concepts than it is the raw experience of life. As you shoot down the tunnel. So it's a lot easier just to. It's a lot easier to navigate concepts. So like if I could conceptualize people and put them, in a box with a little label and put a ribbon on it, I can maybe get through easier than dealing with raw people, raw experience, And so as we get clear about time, that all there is experience. So I'm going to ask you two questions. Here we go. Question number one is you have, so again, future, present, past. So for question one is, can you experience the future? The answer is no. Question two, can you experience the past? The answer is no. Question two is, can you conceptualize the future? The answer is yes. Can you conceptualize the past? The answer is yes. And here's the big trick question. Can you conceptualize the present? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, we can actually conceptualize the present. Not only can we, but most people are conceptualizing the present at all times. With the exception when you get popped out of it by some beautiful song or some gorgeous view or something else radical happening. But in general, you've been living in the conception of your own life, constantly in the concept of things. When in fact, God's creating the world something from nothing. This world is being created at all times from scratch. Something from nothing. Yesh mi ayin. Yesh, something. Mi ayin, from nothing. And that being called God, that's constantly creating the world, the unfolding of the finite from the infinite, is the source of this experience. And he's lined your entire body with nerve endings from your skin to your optic nerves, to your audio nerves, to your taste bud nerves, meaning those are concentrated nerves because you got to perceive things more clearly. Fingertips have tremendous sensitivity. They're important for our survival. He put even covers on them, so in case you did, these are our extremities, so in case you did bang one, your fingernail would save you. Like my thumb, it's a pretty radical looking thumb, but it's thankfully that way because my fingernail saved my thumb when I was 9 years old. So we even have covers for this, so massive sensitivity here and protective covers on the other side to make sure that they would not come off if banged or at least sliced from the top. And and the nerve endings go on all over your body, and obviously the most pleasurable